My wife is going to check and make sure that I hit the button correctly, which I appreciate because there's a good chance I didn't. I did that once at CPE.
Yeah, I saw you had a missing part of one of the interviews.
Yeah, that bugs me to no end. I hate that with a passion.
Hey, and those live events, man, there's nothing you can change. In my interview, when I went to go see the people at Thomas Nelson in Nashville, we recorded audio on my phone, and I had video, so the audio was so terrible. When I got back home to edit it, I was just so frustrated. I tried to get it as good as I could get it, but
I've done that when I went to Ark Encounter and interviewed the people there. I recorded on the camera, on the phone, and then I also took a recorder, and it's a good thing I did.
I bought a Zoom H4 after my incident at Thomas Nelson just so I could have a separate audio recorder. I was like, this is never going to happen to me again. I'm not going to let this happen. So, hey everyone, welcome back again to Talking Bibles. I am joined again with my good friend Randy A. Brown. Randy is a writer and he owns BibleBuyingGuide.com, and he also has a YouTube channel, Bible Buying Guide, and you can scroll down and see all the links to all of his publications and to his website and to his YouTube channel in the description below. So please click on that. Go and subscribe to Randy's channel. If you like my content, you're going to like Randy's content. He's all about the Bible, putting the Bible in your hands and giving you all the helps when you're buying Bibles, hence the name Bible Buying Guide. So, Randy, hey buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. In the last episode, we were talking about kind of advice for reviewers, kind of why you have that process that you have. We talked about consulting with publishers and those things. If you want to see that stuff, I'll have a link to our first episode in the description below as well. On this episode, I want to talk about CPE, Christian Products Expo.
Yes.
Now, this is what's crazy. In Everything Bibles community and in the Bible community online as a whole, there has been like a constant request for us to do a Bible conference, even if it's online, but that already kind of exists in the Christian Products Expo. So you have interviews on your channel from different publishers, and you've had the experience of going. So can you kind of shed some light on this?
I started with International Christian Retail Show, ICRS, back in 2015. And I didn't know about these shows. Cambridge contacted me and asked if I was planning to go because they wanted to interview me. And so I was thinking, if Cambridge wants to interview, you probably should consider going. This is after starting my freelance writing business. So I'm working from home and I'm a freelancer. I can set my own hours. I can go do what I want to. So I went and then interviewed them. But while I was there, I also interviewed several others, just walked up to the booths, and I expected to have to introduce myself. So I was going to walk up and I had my spiel going, I was going to walk up and I was going to say, hey, I'm Randy Brown from Bible Buying Guide. I review, and then, fill in the blank, Bibles, products, whatever. But the very first booth I walked up to, I said, hey, and before I could even finish, the guy goes, Randy Brown from Bible Buying Guide. Here, I love your reviews. Here, review my book. I'm like, okay then. And that happened over and over and over, and I did not expect that at all. I walked up to a Trinitarian Bible Society booth, and they made me stay there until other people could come and meet me. I loved it. It was so fun. That was my introduction to Bible retail shows. And basically what they are a mercantile or a marketing show. So all of these publishers, book authors, product creators, they go to these shows so that stores can come through and see the products that they want to buy, that they want to place an order for their stores. I get to go as media, so I don't have to pay to get in. Then stores, they get in as a retailer. I get in as media.
I'll have to get your contact info for them, because I think I want to try to make a show and just see what it's about. I'd love to even have a booth. Me and you have a booth, and just have people come to us, and we'll have different interviews. That would be awesome. That would be so much fun.
I would love that. That was the first one. That was ICRS, and then later they changed and called themselves Unite. Now I've met several people through that I love. Ken Ham, some of the big preachers and things along that line. That was enjoyable. And then I found another show called CPE, Christian Product Expo. At the time, that was the smaller show. Unite was the big show. That was the one, it was the international show. So that was the one that people from all over the world came to. We decided one year to go there. The people we met there were the same people we saw at Unite. So it was a lot of crossover, but it was smaller. And then the next year, Unite didn't happen. They just didn't have that show that year. So everyone, driven by Thomas Nelson and Holman, because it was near Nashville, everyone went to CPE instead. And that was the big major show. So I went to that one and met even more people. That's where I met 2K Denmark. I love 2K Denmark. Klaus Krogh, I could talk to him all day long. One of my favorite people ever. The place is just packed with people that you just love to talk to. People who know about Bible leather. People who know about Bible design. That's where I met Royal Youngblood and talked to them. These dudes are like 2 feet taller than me. but they're
Man,
awesome
the Dutch.
people.
The Dutch are so tall.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also where I met Sky Klein from Scholar Bibles. I had coffee with him. I love all these people. But yeah, the shows are great because you get to meet authors. You get to meet product producers. Some of the publishers will only send their sales team who don't really know anything about Bible reviewers, and they're not interested in media. If you're not buying a Bible from them, they're not interested in talking to you. Yeah. But most publishers will send someone. That's where I met Nikki Getman and Daniel Mars. When it's someone who loves the product they're making, and they're the ones involved in designing it and making it and producing it, you can't have a better time than that.
I'd love to talk with them about maybe trying to give some discount for rebinders who would be able to market not to Christian retailers, but to general public. Because I went to G3 and I've been to T4G, and at both places I've done interviews, and at both places there was recognition. People, I'd go up and this was at this time I had like 1,000 subscribers, not 5,000, but people would know who I was and want to talk about their products. But there was so much of a different feel because G3 is so much smaller. Well, actually, not anymore, it's not, but it's like you said, CPE has a different feel than Unite. Yeah. It's still a great environment to meet people and to, talk about things with people that love what you love. Like what we're doing right now. The reason for Talking Bibles is just for people to watch these episodes in their own vicarious way. They're taking part in this conversation with us. Like if we were at a conference, talking about Bibles we loved and layouts we love. And you talked about Sky and Klaus and all these folks that are just passionate about what they do.
You can nerd out all day.
That's what I love. Yeah. I've got all day. Exactly.
Just so you know, CPE is the next one is February 14th in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Well, I will say that my wife has got plans for me on February 14th. So now, if I could take my wife, that would be awesome. That'd be an awesome Valentine's trip.
It would be.
So we were talking about meeting with Klaus and Sky Klein and all these folks that kind of have a passion for their product and they have their hands in designing the product. Let's talk about Bible design, because this kind of started for me with your reviews and Bible Design Blog with Mark's presentation of cover quality. Why is there a yap? Why are there spine hubs? This is design kind of 101, and I'd love to kind of get your take on Bible design over the last, since it's kind of had a boom. Like the Bible enthusiasm has kind of had a boom in patrons and people who are really kind of interested in premium Bibles. So let's talk cover specifics.
When you look at materials are definitely getting better.
Well, sometimes not so much. We'll talk about China production later. We're not even talking about Crossway. It's definitely, it's not one set thing. Like liners are not just one thing. There are so many different types of leathers that you could choose for a liner. And understanding when we're talking about Bible design, it's like being a Bible architect. Do you put a 4-inch stud here or a 6-inch stud? Why is it important to have a foundation made of concrete versus center block versus this or that? It's just, design is not just about appealing to your eyes. It's about making this whole thing go together in a long-lasting kind of functionality. So having like a liner that has a premium liner, even if it doesn't have the same feel, is more important to me regarding design because it's a functionality choice.
And when I say it's getting better, I'm referring to when I first started in 2011.
Bible
Bible got started in 2011, April,
that's true.
Which is
our
10th year anniversary is coming up, by the way. They started with glued bindings.
Yeah, true. Very true.
And they started with paste down without reinforced tape. So when you hear people talk about, I don't like paste down, what they really mean is I don't like a paste down that won't last. And
Very true.
They're getting better. And also,
They
a lot
are.
of the paste down tabs are small. So if you have a large, and there's a tab inside the paste down area, that's hard to explain, but there's a little spot where it's all glued together. If that's small, then it's not going to last. And they're still making those. And that's one thing I'm trying to work with some of the publishers to change. Now, it's harder to find a glued binding than a sewn binding. I don't even remember to say it's sewn. When I'm doing my review, I'll come back and I'll say, well, I didn't even mention it's sewn. I was like, well, they're all sewn now. So I don't even think
Most
to say
of them
it.
are, yeah.
And when you look at like a paste down liner from someone like Scholar or even Trinitarian Bible Society or Cambridge, they have reinforced tape, binders
they're
tape
legit.
that last they last a while. And then now you do have leather liners instead of synthetic liners. You might have something like that rather than a synthetic or a bonded leather. I don't care for bonded leather, but
Only one thing I hate more than lying,
Bonded leather.
which is
Trash.
that's lying about being
Leather.
I hate bonded leather. Oh,
and
I hate
even
bonded
the
leather
cheap
in
Bibles,
every form.
I do too. Even the cheaper Bibles now have perimeter stitching.
Yeah.
We're getting two-sided ribbons, even in the lower cost Bibles.
Yeah, praise the Lord.
We're even getting 2K Denmark designs, layouts in cheap Bibles. One of the best Bibles ever, in my opinion, is the Holman New King James large print personal size, designed by 2K Denmark. I love that Bible. It's one of the very first Bibles that they've done for that lower cost that I'm aware of. It's getting better. Now, there are some that have decided to go cheaper after they started getting better. Yeah. And by doing that, they've gone cheaper in the wrong way. They've gone to cheaper paper that has too much show through or has glare. They've gone to cheaper bindings that won't stay open or leather that doesn't quite feel like real leather. And I've even had to contact a few and say, what is this leather made of?
It's made of the garbage they sweep up and glue together. Yeah. That's what it is. It's just junk.
They started low, they're getting better, and then all of a sudden they're going back down. Yeah. And I want to see that material come back up. One that I see is doing better is Thomas Nelson, Zondervan.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes.
The one I see
Zondervan and
doing
Thomas
worse
Nelson are
is,
amazing.
Yes. Crossway's gone downhill. I'm constantly poking them saying, hey, don't use this paper. Hey, don't do this.
Well, we talked about this in the group, and my goal is not to humiliate or not to berate. I don't even want to get anybody fired. But my point is to persuade this Bible producer into producing good products again. We had talked about I don't want to do a boycott. I don't want to boycott because I think when you make poor products, a capitalistic society will boycott. I mean, that's just, they're not going to buy crap. When there's better stuff available. I think the best way to hit them is in the wallet, is stop buying what is not good enough. When all the publishers, back when Randy started, back when Mark started in 2011, we're talking junk. I'm not even lying. There was what was being made was junk, and people were buying it because there were no competition in quality. But once your website came on, the popularity of YouTube skyrocketed. Bible Buying Guide got more influence. Sky Klein started Evangelical Bible. We had, a lot of companies going through Youngblood, and that pushed people to Allen as well. You have kind of a resurgence of this interest in craftsmanship, this interest in these premium details, these premium Bibles. There is a resurgence of people wanting to hold a Bible, kind of disconnect from their device. They want to disconnect from one of these devices and just kind of isolate themselves with the Bible. And that's currently just still surging right now. The junk that was being made, I'm so thankful that there was competition starting, because that's the mother of invention. Surviving is the mother of invention. So when you see a company produce a higher level, even bonded leather's garbage. I don't like it, but there are different levels of bonded leather. So you see a company producing a higher grade of bonded leather that won't just be destroyed after, a month of use. They're going to have more sales, and that's going to affect the sales of the other company. The other company is either going to have to die or innovate. And so they're going to up their ante as well. So I think it's our job as reviewers, as consumers, to only spend money where we see those changes being made. So the things that are happening with Crossway, I think they're going to correct. or Crossway's
Yeah.
going to go out of business. That's
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Thomas Nelson, we saw this with Thomas Nelson in the 80s and the
Yes.
early 90s. They made the best Bibles that you've ever seen. The 406, oh my goodness. Guys, if
yeah.
you're old school Nelson fans, the 406 is the bomb.
Excellent.
It's one of the best papers, one of the best springs of New King James. It is amazing. In a short time, they're acquired by HarperCollins. You know what I'm saying? So that's the survivability. Now, when you don't make good products, even if you used to make good products, this is what I talked about with David Lee Brown, that the publishing market is just not, it doesn't withstand failure. It does not. You're going to die.
Absolutely.
And you see this right now with Kirkbride. You know, Kirkbride that produces the Thompson Chain Bible, they're going to be produced by Zondervan now. And thank the Lord, because Kirkbride needed some help.
Yep.
You know, that they're going to have some really
Absolutely.
great productions, and the Thompson Chain is going to live on, and that's awesome. You're going to see something like this with Crossway if it goes unchecked. You know, someone else is going to acquire them, and they're going to produce ESVs better than Crossway, and it's going to put them out.
Right.
You know, unless
Absolutely.
they change. Pushing that toward the different layouts. Let's really quickly talk about different layouts in design.
Okay.
So single column versus double column, and references, non-reference, all those things. How does that relate to the use?
First of all, I see a lot of people ask, single column versus double column. To me, they're asking the wrong question. It's not how many columns you have, it's how wide the columns are in relation to their text size. I look for about 10 words per line.
Okay.
If it has a poetic setting and in paragraph and in prose. The reason for this is because that's a good balance between having a line that's not too wide and having enough line space to have good poetry, to have a good poetic setting. I love a good poetic setting. Ideally, poetry needs 14 words per line to look beautiful. But I can deal with 10. I can deal with 10 or 12. Prose, if you have too many words per line, and then you don't have enough space between those lines, and the text bends into the gutter, by the time you're at the end of that line, you don't really know where to start back to the next line. You get lost. They're too crushed. They're not designed right. And that really shows a problem with some of the designs. And in order to do it right, you have to do this one I was talking about earlier, the ESV Reader's Edition. And it highlights the problem. It's a beautiful design. It's about 10 words per line. It has the line space that I'm looking for. But in order to make it work, you have to have a multi-volume set. So the problem the problem comes from having to compromise your design in order to make it fit into a single volume that's usable. So in order to make a single volume that's usable, that's where you come into double column.
Yeah, or thin paper.
The problem then is that they end up having to crush the lines together. So they remove the space between the lines. They have the columns so narrow that you can't really have a good setting for your poetry. Now, in a verse-by-verse setting, that doesn't really matter to me. 8 words in verse-by-verse is fine because you don't have a poetic setting. If you have too long of a line in verse-by-verse, you're going to have a lot of awkward space but at the end of each verse. That doesn't work for me either. So for verse-by-verse with no poetic setting, I would say double column is perfect. For reading, and I don't read verse-by-verse, I read paragraph because that's natural text. I look for natural text flow. I want my design to be based on the text, not based on our navigation that we add to the text. Yeah. So if you take all the letters out, all the numbers out, all the chapter numbers, verse, you take all this out, design the text, then add all the rest back in. That's what Cambridge did with the New Cambridge Paragraph Bible. That's why it works so perfectly. Where you have a cut between one chapter to the next. Acts 21 to Acts 22 isn't a good example of that. Yeah. They put Acts 22 in the same paragraph as the end of Acts 21. That's where it works because that's the flow. So you put the text first. So for reading, I want a layout that puts the text first. A single column, that's going to be a paragraph with a poetic setting. I want letters to look like letters. I want lists to look like lists. I want dialogue to look like dialogue. It doesn't have to look like a novel. That's not my point. But when you have to put all that into a single volume, that's where you start having to make all these compromises. You start having to go with smaller text. You start making things that don't really fit the readability. So you really interrupt the readability to add all this other stuff in there. I want text first.
The nature of the type of text we're reading
Yes.
should be presented the way it's meant to be presented. That's why I think poetry sections, regardless of paragraph or verse format, need to be verse. I mean, they're verse formatted. The ESV does a good job with this. Most publishers do a good job with this, where they, even if it's paragraph format, you're going to have them versified in the poetry sections. But they need to be, like you said, if it's a chronology, if it's a list, they need to be presented in that manner. It's more accurate to what the actual text is.
And one verse by verse that gets it right is the Thomas Nelson New King James verse by verse settings for the Premier Collection, the giant print.
And it's red letter.
And also the Preaching Bible. The New King James Preaching Bible has a wide enough column. And it even though it's verse by verse, it's still able to show you a letter. It's still able to show you poetry. It looks right. It looks
It does. It looks really good. Hey, and we're going to talk about preaching Bibles, marketing, and that stuff in the next episode. So stay tuned. But right now, let's do another lightning round with Randy A. Brown. You ready, buddy?
Sounds great.
So what is your favorite Bible unicorn? And when I say unicorn, I don't mean fictional character. I mean a really tough to find Bible.
Dugan Topical Analytical Study Bible.
Very good.
And what that one does, for those who don't know, what that does is it has 100,000 cross references. It has the Bible printed twice. It has every single verse printed twice. First is a normal. The second time is every single verse under a specific topic. It has a 300-page dictionary, a large topical index, and then it has a Cruden's Concordance. Best concordance in any Bible ever.
I love the Dixon. Have you ever had the Dixon?
Yes, I have a Dixon.
Oh, it's so good. It's not quite a unicorn status, but the Dixon's awesome. Let's do favorite leather. What's your favorite leather?
Well, one leather that I find that is underrated is cowhide.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I think it was your ESV Thin Line review you had mentioned that. But now there's variations of cowhide. So like,
absolutely.
What about the cowhide do you like so much?
I like the texture and the feel. One of the Bibles that I'm thinking of is the Holman.
Yes, they have that bubbly grain.
Yes, it feels like a football.
Yes, it does.
I love that.
It does.
That's one of my favorite leathers.
And I love football. You know, even though we're better at it than anybody in Tennessee, you know. So,
well, Tennessee, when you're talking about Tennessee football, I would like Tennessee to have a football team myself, but
that'd be great, wouldn't it?
That would be great. I gave up on the ball so many years ago, and I never really was a Titans fan.